everyone, and welcome to the thru Recovery Life podcast. Today, we have Mike in Portland, Oregon, here to share his experience, strength, and hope with us and tell us what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Mike is not really a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, but he's been sober for, I believe, 10 years or so. And so he's going to tell us how he does it. I think it'll still be a great story to hear. So without further ado, I give you Mike in Portland, Oregon. Go ahead, Mike.
Hello, everyone. So my story starts. I was raised in a single parent household, just my mom, my sister, and my mom. That was like the first 8 years of my life, and just being a kid. And then when I was 9 years old, my mother decided that she wanted another relationship or with my father. They wanted to give it another try. So they moved back in together and we moved. And I think that's when life changed for me. My father, he ran after hours clubs. So like when the bars and stuff closed, or not even when the bars were closed, it would just be a after hours, a party. They would have, drinking and gambling and partying. I'm pretty sure they were doing drugs in there. At that time, I was too young to really understand that. But I remember at nighttime, it would be times where they would go to the after hours. Now, my mom never did drugs. And I can't say for sure if my dad did or not. But I remember being young, and I remember being in the after hours, and I would walk around, and I remember seeing like the gambling table and the bars, and just, it was a different experience from what I was used to my first 8 years of life. One thing I do notice or did notice was once my mom got back with my dad, she started drinking a little more. And that went on for about, I'll say, 6 years. And I remember like just things being different. I started like getting in trouble at school more. Things changed. When I was 14, I started high school. My dad used to have these like little shot bottles, cases of them that he would they would sell them at the after hours. So I started going in the little cases of the shot bottles, and I would take them to school, and I would sell them to the other kids. Just life. I took a different path in life. I started hanging out more with the wrong kind of kids. I started drinking. I had my first drink when I was 14. I got really drunk. I remember that. Had a basketball game the next day. Couldn't do anything. I was hungover. And I remember I promised myself, I'm not drinking again. Well, my mom and my dad broke up. But at that point in time, things were already changed. I ended up starting to drink again when I was 16. We moved to Seattle. I met kids up there, but by that time I was, I wasn't on the right path. So we used to party all the time, or we go hang out and we'd find ways to get alcohol. Sometimes we would steal it. Sometimes we'd have older people buy it for us. And that pretty much was the spin on my life for the next 2 years. until I became 18 years old. And I remember coming back to Portland, and I felt like I was an adult at that time. 18, I'm going to do what I want. I'm grown. Little did I know that I wasn't. um, I met someone, and she ended up getting pregnant. So here I was, 18 years old, about to be a father. And it was like I was excited to be a father, but I wasn't ready to be a father. I didn't know that. So I started once again hanging with old friends, doing things I wasn't supposed to do. And I ended up going to jail before my child was born. Now I was trying to make a way instead of working, and didn't realize that was the wrong way to be doing things, which I think that set me on a destructive path. My child was born, and I was in trouble with the law. I didn't want to listen to like probation officers and people telling me, go back to school, do this, you got a kid now. And I understood that, but I was still young. Turned 21, going to the bars, hanging out, partying, just thinking that I could still do things that a 21-year-old with no kid and no responsibilities was doing. Things start going bad in my home, and I started drinking more and more heavily. So I think by the time I was 24, I was a full-blown alcoholic, in and out of jail, just still doing the same old thing. So that describes basically my next 6 years of life until I was about 30 years old. And I was just full-blown alcoholic. Couldn't do anything. Tried to get jobs. Tried to do what I could, but I was too far gone. I would catch myself falling asleep in the bushes at bus stops. And my kid's mother finally said she had enough. She didn't want to raise our kids. I had a son by that time too. She just didn't want me to be around, want them to see that. And as I look back at that, I understand totally. I totally do. And I don't hold any fault against her for making that decision. So here it is. I'm 30 years old, no place to go. I'm homeless. And I really didn't care anymore about life kind of at that point. It wasn't like I was suicidal, but I just didn't care. I remember always being like, yeah, I'll do that. I ain't got nothing to lose. And not realizing that I had a whole bunch to lose, but it didn't calculate like that. So I ended up getting in trouble with the law again when I was 30. And I had to go to prison. So I went to prison. I was sentenced to 13 months. Luckily, not a long time, but long enough. And I did 10 and a half months of that 13 months. And my new girlfriend, I forgot to mention, I had met a new woman. And when I got out, they came and picked me up, her and my cousins. And they brought a bottle with them. So from the minute I got released from prison, I was back drinking again. I think it was maybe 9 o'clock in the morning when I got out. Started the cycle all over. I'm on parole. and I haven't even seen my PO, and I'm already drunk. Um, I mean, it just, I think back to some of that stuff, and it's like, wow, I really went through that. But I finally went to see my PO, and she could tell that I had been drinking. So she was like, hey, you need to go to an inpatient program. And I told her, no, I don't need inpatient. I can do outpatient. I got this. So I convinced her to give me an outpatient program. And I went and I did the outpatient. I remember it was 2 classes a week. And I had to, like once a week, we had to do random UAs. But me being me, it was like, okay, well, once I take a UA, I know I'm not going to take one for another week. So when I would take my UA, I would get out and I would go drink. And then I would stop drinking until I had to take my UA. And then I would start drinking again. So here's me in outpatient treatment, cheating the system, going in there lying, telling them I've been sober since this date and wasn't sober at all. And I beat the system on that and got out of outpatient treatment, got graduated from outpatient treatment, and bought a bottle that same day, as soon as I got out. So once I beat the outpatient treatment, or that's how I'm looking at it, like I beat it. Once I beat the outpatient treatment, I had my PO. I had got a new PO. And so he was telling me like, well, as long as you don't get any trouble, I'll just put you on inactive probation and you can ride it out for like the last 6 months. So that was my point, my purpose. I'm just not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to get in trouble. So all I did was get drunk and hang out, stay home, not really do anything, not try to look for a job, not try to get my life together in any type of way. I got kids running around in the house. These is my girlfriend's kids, my kids from my previous relationship, they would visit and they would come over. And it was, I really wasn't active. I would go to like games and stuff or things like that. I would take them all out, but always had to make sure it was alcohol. Always had to get drunk. That's just the way it was. So one day, like literally, one of our neighbors, she had a party, and we there getting drunk. And I remember I got into an argument with somebody there, and we kind of got into a scuffle. And I ended up getting stabbed in the face. And that was like the first time that something had really happened to me like that. But it was all over alcohol. And it was like, whoa. I kind of thought about what I was doing, but it still hadn't clicked. Fast forward about a month, I ended up cutting my hand open. Had to get had nerve damage and tendon damage. Had to have surgery on my hand. That's the second time something serious. So I'm kind of in my mind, I'm thinking like, now I'm starting to get harmed from this. I think back to that, and it's like, those are things that it just seemed like a dream, like I was in like Wonderland or something like that, a bad version of Wonderland. But so one day I'm talking to my daughter on the phone, and she asked me something, and I can't quite remember what it is, but I remember that I had promised her something, and she told me, "Don't promise me that because you'll probably get drunk and not remember." And I told her, "I'm going to remember." And she was like, "Dad, listen." By this time, she's 16 years old. She was like, "Dad, listen. You're my dad, and I love you, and I'm going to always love you, but you're drunk. And it is what it is. It's not going to change anything. You're still my father, still love you, but you just are who you are." And that hit me. It hit me hard. And I had to look around and look at the kids that I was raising, and my son and my girlfriend's kids, and like, is this really who I am? I know it's not. Do I want them to see me like this? Is this who I'm trying to be? I'm not this person. And I think that was the spark that I needed that made me say, I truly need to change the way that I am. So that night, I went with my cousin and I was talking to her and I was telling her about what was going on. I'm like, "Hey, let's walk to the store. Let's grab some beer." I said, "We finna drink these beers, and these are gonna be the last beers I ever drink. Last time I drink." She was like, "Are you for real?" I'm like, "Yep." So we walked to the store and grabbed a 12 pack, and we just sat on the porch and drank the 12 pack until like 3 in the morning. And I went home, I went to sleep, and woke up. I never touched alcohol again. And for the first 30 days, it was very hard. That was my thing. I mean, I remember I said, I'm gonna just go 30 days. I need to take a break and let me see what I can do after 30 days. But as the time started going, and as my mind got more clear, I was thinking, well, if I can go 30, I can go 60. And then I would think more, like, if I can go 60, I can go 120, etc. I kept like doubling the time up. This is while I'm still in the first 30 days of that. So I made it to 30 days. And I was like, okay, well, I don't need to drink. I'm starting to get a clear head again. I mean, I can tell by looking at my face and my skin and just the way that I was feeling. I was already starting to feel healthier. I was already starting to see the world differently, and I would start to look at things around me and notice things around me, like where I was in life and people that I grew up with. And I'm paying attention now, like, geez, I am 35 years old. And, I'm supposed to be having a career. I'm supposed to be doing this. And then, I'm still kind of like in a low income area. And I'm seeing other people around me. And I'm looking like, wow, is this what I was looking like? And I'm not saying that to judge anyone, but I know how I was raised before my mom got back with my father, and the reason why she left him. I'm starting to see that. And I'm like, this is not what I want to be. So I start, Googling things like the symptoms of 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 drinking, and what can it do to your body, and how long does it take for your mind to start working again, and certain things like that. I went and got a checkup from the doctors. They told me my body was fine, so I was glad about that. And I just, I've never been a dumb kid, so I would look like, okay, let me Google this. Let me try to figure this out. Let me try to figure how I can get my life back together. What can I do to make money legally? What can I do? I would just investigate and try to figure new things out for myself. I ended up getting a little job, and I saved some money up, and we ended up moving out of that neighborhood. We moved to a better place. But by this time, I'm like maybe a year sober. My mind is working more. So I'm starting to think, okay, well, what can I do next? How do I create income? How do I do this for my kids? How do I do this? And I start working on building credit, things that they didn't teach us in school, or maybe they did teach, but I didn't pay attention. So I started working on building my credit up, and I decided to go back to college for a minute. I didn't finish it, but I did decide to go back. And I took a couple semesters. Just wanted to make sure that my mind was working, that I wasn't just, is it an illusion? And once I figured that out, I started working on my credit and building my credit. And, I was starting to see things clearer, take, do things with my family. They were starting to look at me differently. They were kids, and I didn't want them to see me as they got older and think that that's what a responsible adult, or just when an adult is supposed to be general. They didn't need to see that part of me, because I felt like, how would they respect me as a father if I was always getting drunk all the time, or always sleep and always sick and always hungover? It just didn't sit right with me. So I didn't want to play catch up, because I knew I could never catch up. But if I could put myself in a position, I could just manage my life from there. And so that's what I did. It was things that I just wasn't ready for at certain times when I was in the AA classes and in the outpatient classes. I wasn't ready at that time. And I had to honestly be ready within myself. They say change, a person has to want to change before it to work. And I felt that need to change. And so that's what I did. I started changing the way I moved. I started changing my thinking patterns. I started looking at things that I used to do and be like, those things aren't okay. It's not okay to think like that. It's not okay to be, try to be polite to people. I wasn't raised like this. Be polite. You got to be polite. My mom was always a polite person, a nice person, and a giving person. And I strayed away from that, but that was always in me. And so I had to, mentally, I think the mental part of it is harder than just the not drinking, because you have to always, not only do you have to always say, hey, I'm not drinking, but you have to always, we can't help what our thoughts are. So we have to always self-check those thoughts. I can't see things and think like that. I can't focus on bad things when I know there's so much good out there. And so once I start changing my mind frame to think like that, I think that's when things started getting better for me. not just with the not drinking, but with the mindset of positivity and love and respect and understanding that we are all not the same, that people are different, and it's okay to be different. You know, people have problems. I don't understand everybody's problems, but I have to understand that they do have problems, and it's okay. And if you can help them with their problems, if it's only just by being a listening ear, be there for people. That when I started thinking like that, that's when, like I said, things started to change for me. I started figuring out, you know, what I needed to do for myself, what I need to do for others. I started building my life. My life started looking, the outlook on life started to it's like when you hit a level, then you realize that it started to go up drastically at that point. My altitude became higher. They say your attitude determines your altitude. Well, that happened for me. So I successfully changed that. I fixed my credit. I fixed different things. And I was eventually able to buy a home. So I've been living in my home for 5 years now. And through that time, you know, I still was, you know, figuring out, what do I want to do with my life? It's more to life than just working. It's more to life than just, to me, it's more to life than just being, okay, I'm content with what I have. I'm just going to live the rest of it out. You know, I always wanted more. I always wanted to say, hey, maybe I can do this. Maybe I can start helping people. You know, I felt like if I could turn off alcohol and negative thinking and negative thoughts, what can I turn on? And so I got to the point where it was like, okay, now I want to start helping people that have been in the situations that I've been in, that have been homeless, caring for others, you know, trying to help people to understand that, you know, you don't have to live life like this. You don't have to live life feeling messed up every day and having bad thoughts and thinking that you're not gonna be able to do anything with yourself, because it's just not true. Change is possible. I'm living proof that change is possible. And so I started a YouTube channel last year to where I talk about sobriety. I started my Instagram page, Sober Living Life 2021, where I just try to share different stories and interact and talk to other people about sobriety and just, you know, my next step, just figure it out. I'm not quite sure where I'm going yet, but I know that I'm going down the right path. And, you know, I can't look at my past. That's one thing too. Another thing that I would love to tell people is your past don't define you. It's all about your future, the things that you make, the things that you do, you know, how you handle your past, the things, though, that is what makes you who you are. And so, like I said, I don't know where life is taking me, but I do know that's in the right direction because I understand how far I've come.
Hey, Mike, do you remember the exact date that you quit drinking?
Yeah, it was June 12th of 2012.
Okay. And what led you to that? You told me off mic, but go ahead and tell us the story behind it.
Well, it was, you know, my daughter's birthday was coming up. her birthday was 4 days prior on the 8th. And so she was, like I said, she said something to me, and I kind of promised her something, and she just didn't believe me. And, it was her birthday, and it was like, she was about to be 16 years old. And it's kind of like, you don't want to let your 16-year-old kid down. And she was at an age to where she understood. She's a teenager. And it just, it hurt my feelings to hear that. Like, I'm letting my kids down. And like my son, he was younger, but he was getting older. So he was going to be at that point to where he started understanding too. And it was like,
How old was his son?
my son was, I think he was 11 or 12 at that time.
Okay.
So it was, you get to the point where I just was like, I don't want them to grow up and, she was already about this, like I said, 16. So she already fully understood. She had been through the problems with me and her mother. She understood. And it was like, Dad, I love you, but you just are who you are. And you've been this way all my life. So
now, how many AA meetings did you attend? And why did you stop going to AA?
I attended, my PO told me that I needed to go to meetings. I think I attended 3. And the reason I stopped attending them was because I wasn't ready for it. None of the language was foreign. I wasn't ready for it. I didn't feel like it was a sense of belonging, I guess. I didn't feel like I belonged, knowing that I was still drinking, knowing that I was cheating. You know how they say you can't be forced? I felt like I was being forced to be there. I didn't want to be there. And so I just stopped going.
Now, how long from when you stopped going to AA till June when you stopped drinking altogether?
I think it was about 3 years.
Okay.
About 3 years. But one thing I can say about like inpatient treatment, the outpatient treatment I did, and the few AA meetings I went to, is in AA, I did see the people that were actually involved in that. I seen the genuineness that they had amongst each other. In inpatient, I did learn some of the ways that they, with the tactics, and I learned it gave me some insight, some knowledge of things that you use in sobriety, especially when like changing the way you think. And I remember they called it criminal thinking. Like your thoughts will lead you back into destructive behaviors. You can't have. Yeah, go ahead.
So I find your story fascinating because although this is an AA website, you've been sober for all this time and not going into AA. Now, I've got to ask you, do you believe in a higher power? Is it your higher power that's helping you stay sober? Do you go to church?
No, I don't attend church. But I do believe that, I believe that there's a God, and I don't, I don't want to say it as per se like a God like how everybody else looks at God. There's nothing wrong with that to me. Nothing wrong with religion to me. But I do believe that there is, because this life like this wouldn't be possible if it wasn't a higher power, regardless of science, regardless of any of that. Something created that. And I've seen too many things happen, and I've been through too many situations to where it could have been like, if I would have been 1 inch this way, this could have happened, or I've just, you see things that that couldn't have happened unless it was a higher power.
Right. I agree. Totally agree. Fantastic, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. What else? Okay, no, we're good, Mike. Anything else you want to tell us?
All I would just say is, if you don't have any, if a person doesn't have any hope for themselves, you got to take a look around and look at nature, look at flowers, look at the sky, look at, and just understand that there is beauty in this world. You can't miss the forest because of the trees. A lot of times we think our lives be at our worst points, but if you find something, you see something on TV, you see something anywhere, and it can just make you chuckle, that little chuckle or that little thing that you saw can show you that life can be so much better for you.
Right. And what you just said made me think of something else. Do you, it seems like you meditate. Do you meditate? Do you basically meditate?
I have before, but one thing I do is I sit alone with my thoughts. If I'm driving to work or if I'm just in the car, I'm one of the type that I don't play music all the time. I just silent, and I roll and I try to think. I try to look at what's going on around me. Think about that. Think about, what's right and what's wrong. And, I focus on, I do a lot of focusing on good. I don't try to watch too much, negative TV shows. I do a lot of tutorial watching and things like that. And just trying to, I guess you can call that meditation, just my personal way of doing it.
Yeah, so you're very introspective, and basically what you mentioned, what you talked about, makes me think of a 10th step. Taking a personal inventory. Uh, yeah. Okay. All right, Mike. Again, it's great that I thank you for taking the time to do this, and I have a great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you for having me.